I don't know why I'm telling you this now. Maybe because it's 2:17 in the morning and the silence is louder than it used to be. Maybe because I can still hear the creak of the door from earlier tonight, my nephew's voice cutting through the quiet like a knife. Or maybe it's because I've been lying to myself for a very long time, and tonight, it finally came undone. My name is Elena. I'm 37. I've been married for 9 years, together with Daniel for almost 11. And I think I forgot who I was somewhere along the way. It didn't start in some dramatic way. No betrayal. No fight. No other woman. It was slower than that. Quieter. Like a leak in the ceiling that you don't notice until the water stains start showing up in the walls. When Daniel and I first met, he made me laugh so hard I cried. He had this boyish way about him, charm without arrogance. We were always touching, fingers on knees under the table, lazy kisses in the kitchen while pasta boiled over, his hand in the small of my back at parties. That kind of affection that felt effortless. Back then, I felt wanted. Not just sexually, but emotionally. Like someone had finally found the dial to the right frequency in my chest and tuned in. But over time, things shifted. The kisses didn't stop, not entirely. They just changed. Like tonight, before everything cracked open, I kissed him goodnight. Just a small thing. I leaned into his side as he scrolled mindlessly on his phone, and I pressed my lips to his shoulder. He said nothing. He didn't even turn his head. Just kept scrolling. It's subtle, isn't it? So easy to ignore. But I felt it. That coolness. Last week, I tried to initiate something, sex, but it wasn't even sex I was really after. I just wanted to feel something. I put on that old shirt he used to love, the soft one that slips off my shoulder just right. He smiled, said, "You look cute," kissed me on the forehead like I was a child, and rolled over. There was no malice in it. That's the worst part. He's not cruel. He still holds my hand in public. Still texts me to ask if I want sushi for dinner. But there's this emotional vacancy that crept in between us. Like we're acting out a play of our own lives, hitting our marks, saying our lines, but not feeling any of it anymore. And I've tried to be patient. To talk about it. But when I do, he says he's tired, or stressed, or that it's not always going to feel like the beginning. I know that. I'm not a child. I don't expect fireworks every night. But I do expect warmth. Connection. Something. Tonight, I was alone in the guest room, where I'd been sleeping more and more lately, under the pretense of late work or I don't want to wake you when I get up early. The truth? I don't remember the last time I fell asleep next to him and didn't feel lonelier than if I were by myself. The house was quiet. Just the hum of the fridge and the low tick of the heating pipes. And then I heard the front door open. That was strange, because Daniel and I weren't expecting anyone. It was nearly midnight. Then I heard a voice. My nephew Jake, 21, had a key we gave him for emergencies. "Elena," he called. And I froze. Because he wasn't alone. I didn't know it yet, but something was about to break. But even before the door swung open, before everything that came after, I think I'd already cracked open inside. Because earlier that evening, while I was brushing my teeth, Daniel came in, kissed me on the cheek, and left. And I just stared at myself in the mirror, toothbrush paused midair, and thought, when did I become a stranger in my own marriage? Daniel's a firefighter. That used to feel like something out of a movie when we first got together, his uniform folded at the end of the bed, stories of rescues that made my stomach flip with pride and nerves. He always smelled faintly of smoke and sweat, and I'd wrap my arms around him like I could keep the danger from following him home. But real life doesn't stay cinematic. Not for long. The next morning after Jake's unexpected arrival, after the awkward, confused shuffle of hellos and "I didn't know you were coming," I tried to slip back into normal. I made coffee. Scrambled eggs. I asked Jake if he wanted to stay the weekend. He said no, just passing through, needed to grab some tools he'd left when he helped Daniel build the deck. I smiled. Like nothing inside me had cracked open. Daniel came into the kitchen, still towel-drying his hair. He came up behind me and wrapped his arms around my waist. I froze a little, then softened, but not all the way. He kissed the back of my neck. You smell like oranges. It's just the soap. I heard the hurt in my voice too late. He turned me gently in his arms. Hey. What's going on with you? It wasn't an accusation. It wasn't even impatient. Just disconnected. Like he was watching a scene, trying to understand the plot. I wanted to say, "I feel like I'm vanishing, Daniel." Instead, I said, "Nothing. Just tired." He leaned in to kiss me again, more firmly this time. And I let him. But it felt like he was reaching for something physical, some shortcut to intimacy that didn't involve conversation or vulnerability. That used to work. He could touch my wrist or lean into my space and I'd melt. But now it felt like touching wasn't connection, it was a way around the conversation. We were in different rooms, speaking different languages. He reached for me again that night, in bed. His hands warm and certain, the way they always were. I turned to face him, because part of me still wanted it. Wanted him. But when his hand moved under my shirt, I felt this sharp ping of loneliness. I didn't say no. But I didn't respond the way I used to. He paused. What's wrong? I stared at the ceiling. It just feels quick. Like we're skipping something. He propped himself up on one elbow. I don't get it. We haven't in, 2 weeks. I'm trying here, Elle. I know, I whispered. And I hated myself for sounding like I was apologizing. He sighed, pulled away, rolled onto his back. You want me to talk more, or something? Before? I don't know what you need anymore. That gutted me more than anything. Not because he was being cruel, but because he meant it. I didn't know how to explain that I didn't want a script. I didn't need him to recite sweet nothings or light candles. I just wanted to feel chosen. Seen. I wanted him to ask about my day and wait for the answer. I wanted to feel his attention, not just his hands. Instead, we lay there in silence. Inches apart. And I thought, this is the real danger zone. Not the fights. Not the affairs. Not the dramatic exits. But this, two people lying side by side, both craving closeness, and still missing each other by a mile. Later that week, I cooked his favorite, chicken piccata, the way his mom used to make it. I lit the stupid candles. I even wore lipstick. He came home 2 hours late. Calls ran over, he said, breathless and apologetic. I should have texted. I nodded. It's cold now. He kissed my temple. You didn't have to go through all this trouble. I wanted to scream. That was the trouble, he couldn't see that this was me trying to reach out. Not to impress him. Not to seduce him. Just to be met. But I didn't scream. Instead, I sat across from him at the table, our forks scraping plates, the candles burning low between us. And I thought, we're both still here. But I don't think either of us knows why anymore. We were folding laundry in the living room when it happened. Just an ordinary Saturday. The kind of day that used to mean something, lazy music playing low, the dog napping by the window, 2 cups of coffee left half full on the side table. Domestic peace, I guess. Daniel tossed a pair of my underwear onto the couch between us, and when I leaned forward to grab it, he reached out and playfully smacked my backside. A small thing. A thing he used to do when we were first dating, and I'd laugh and smack him back. A thing that, once upon a time, made me feel flirted with. Desired. But this time, I flinched. It wasn't dramatic. Just a subtle tightening of my shoulders. But he noticed. His face dropped, just for a second. "Hey," he said gently. "It's me." "I know," I said too quickly, forcing a laugh. "I'm just jumpy." He tried again a few minutes later. Came over behind me while I was refolding a towel that somehow felt too damp, wrapped his arms around my waist, and nuzzled into my neck. I stood there, towel in hand, letting him hold me. But I didn't lean back. I didn't turn toward him. I couldn't. And the worst part? I wanted to want it. I wanted to melt. To turn and kiss him and fall into something familiar and soft and whole. But my body didn't believe the story anymore. He kissed the back of my shoulder, lingering. "Elena," he murmured into my skin, "can we not be weird today?" I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it sounded like someone trying to unclog a drain by asking it nicely. "I'm not trying to be weird," I said. "I'm just not there right now." "You're never there lately," he said, and he didn't mean to sound bitter, but he did. I turned around to face him. "That's not fair. Isn't it?" And there it was. This widening gap between what he wanted and what I couldn't give. This invisible thread we kept tugging at from opposite sides, hoping it wouldn't snap. He looked at me, really looked, and for a second I saw the old Daniel. The one who used to write me notes in Sharpie on napkins. The one who danced with me in the kitchen to sad 90s love songs. "I miss you," he said. "I miss us." "I'm right here," I replied, quietly. But even I didn't believe myself. That night, he tried again. Slid under the sheets and spooned me close, his hands gentle but deliberate. He kissed the side of my neck, soft and slow. His breath warm against my skin. And I lay there, still. Not cold. Not angry. Just disconnected. I didn't pull away. But I didn't respond either. My body didn't move. My breath didn't change. He paused. "Elena?" I closed my eyes. "I'm tired." A long silence. He rolled away. Not harshly. Just defeated. I stared at the ceiling, feeling the distance between us swell like a bruise. A space too big to fill with small touches and unspoken need. And in the quiet of our dark bedroom, I whispered the thing I'd been too afraid to say out loud: why does everything have to turn into sex? It was supposed to be a date night. Daniel suggested it 2 weeks ago, said he wanted to reconnect. I agreed, even circled it on the calendar like it meant something. I told myself it might help. Maybe if we went through the motions long enough, they'd start to feel real again. He picked a place we used to love, a tiny Italian spot tucked into the corner of Cambridge where we once shared tiramisu off the same spoon. I remember that night. We were tipsy on red wine and practically giddy from kissing between courses. This night? It started fine. I wore a black dress I hadn't pulled out in months. He complimented me, said I looked stunning, and he meant it. I smiled, but it didn't quite reach my eyes. We sat across from each other, ordering the same drinks, the same dishes. We talked about Jake, my sister's new dog, some fire call he had that morning that involved a raccoon in a chimney. But I wasn't there. Not really. I kept trying to force the words out, force the smile, force the us back into the room. But every second, I felt like I was performing a version of myself I couldn't recognize anymore. Then the waiter brought the pasta. And Daniel reached across the table, laced his fingers with mine. "I've missed this," he said. I looked at our hands. His thumb stroked mine like it used to. Like we were still okay. And I just snapped. "I don't know what you think this is," I blurted. "Because it's not this anymore. It hasn't been for a long time." He blinked. "What?" "This," I said, gesturing to the candlelit table, the food, the wine. "This isn't fixing anything." "I didn't say it was. I just thought, you thought if you fed me pasta and held my hand I'd magically forget how lonely I've been." He pulled his hand back slowly. Like touching me had suddenly become dangerous. People were watching us. I knew it. I could feel their glances, their quick silences. But I didn't care. My throat burned. "I'm trying, Elena," he said, quietly, his voice tight. "I'm doing everything I know how." "No. You're doing what you think love is. Touching me. Kissing me. Pulling me into bed without ever asking how I feel." He sat back, jaw clenched. "So now I'm the villain because I want to be close to my own wife?" "That's not what I said. It's what it sounds like. I don't want pity closeness, Daniel. I want, God, I don't even know what I want anymore." My voice cracked. "But it's not this. It's not you, not like this." He didn't speak. Just looked at me with something between heartbreak and disbelief. I stood up too fast, the chair scraping the floor. "I have to go," I whispered, tears already spilling. "I can't sit here and pretend we're still us." I didn't even wait for the check. I left him there, staring at our untouched plates. I cried in the Uber. Not just a few tears, sobbing. Messy, choking sobs that I couldn't stop, even when the driver kept glancing at me in the rearview mirror. By the time I got home, I felt emptied out. Hollow. I sat on the edge of the bathtub, staring at the tile floor, mascara streaked down my cheeks, dress still on. And I couldn't stop replaying his face when I lashed out. The confusion in his eyes. The way he backed off like I'd slapped him. The hurt I saw before I walked away. What the hell was I doing? He was trying. In the only way he knew how. I knew that. And still, I shut him out. Over and over. And yet, part of me was furious he didn't know me better. That after all these years, he still didn't understand that sometimes I needed to be held without being touched. That sometimes I needed him to just sit beside me in silence and let me unravel. I curled into myself on the bathroom floor and whispered into the emptiness, "Why does love feel more like survival now?" And the silence, again, had no answer. The silence settled over us like a slow snowfall, soft at first, then suffocating. We didn't talk about the restaurant. We didn't talk about anything that mattered. We just moved around each other, quietly and carefully, like two ghosts sharing the same house. Mornings became the hardest. He'd wake before me, shower, leave coffee on the counter. No kiss. No "have a good day." Just the mug. The small ritual still alive, barely, but without warmth. Sometimes, I watched him from the bedroom window as he backed the truck out of the driveway. His face blank. Focused. Like he was already somewhere else. I missed him. And I hated that I didn't know how to tell him. He wasn't cruel, or cold, or even angry. He was just distant. Detached in the way someone becomes after too many unanswered questions. After too many nights reaching for someone who won't reach back. He still brought in the mail. Took the trash out. Mowed the lawn. He still asked if I needed anything from the store, still nodded when I said, "Good night." But he didn't touch me anymore. And that's what finally broke me. Because it made me realize something I hadn't expected to feel. I wanted his touch. Not just the sex. The presence. The warmth of his hands. His weight beside me in bed. His fingers brushing my cheek without agenda. It's easy to push someone away when you think they'll keep trying. But when they stop, when they really stop, you start to see the hole where they used to be. One night, I found him in the garage, staring blankly at the tool rack. "Can't find the wrench?" I asked softly, trying for lightness. He looked at me, slow and tired. "No. Just thinking." I nodded, even though I didn't know what to say. "Everything okay?" I asked. He paused, then shrugged. "I don't know how to be with you anymore." It wasn't said with spite. Just quiet honesty. And somehow that hurt more. I stood in the doorway, arms crossed over my chest like armor. "I miss you," I said. He looked down. "Then why do you keep leaving the room when I walk in?" I didn't have an answer. Not one that made sense. Not one that wouldn't sound like another excuse. So I just stood there, aching. The next few days were worse. We barely spoke. Shared the couch but not the shows. Ate in silence. Slept inches apart, strangers under the same blanket. I caught him looking at me once, really looking. Like he was trying to decide whether to fight or let go. That look haunted me. Because I realized he wasn't the only one wondering how to reconnect. I'd been waiting for him to fix it. For him to see me, understand me, say the right thing. But what had I given him in return? A wall. A series of quiet punishments for not being who I wanted him to be. And yet, I still loved him. I didn't know if that was enough. But I knew the absence of him hurt more than his flaws ever had. So one morning, after he left, I stood in the kitchen staring at that damn coffee mug. The one he still put out, even now. I ran my finger around the rim and whispered into the quiet, "I think I want to try again." Not because it would be easy. But because maybe, just maybe, we were worth trying for. The night everything truly fractured wasn't the night of the fight, or the weeks of silence that followed. It was the night my nephew, Lucas, showed up unannounced. I had just finished cleaning the kitchen when I heard the front door open. Daniel was supposed to be on shift overnight at the fire station. I assumed it was him, forgotten keys, maybe, and called out, "Did you forget something?" But it wasn't Daniel. It was Lucas. 18, wide-eyed, stunned. He stood in the entryway, backpack still slung over one shoulder, as if frozen mid-step. Behind him, Daniel stepped out of the shadows of the porch. He wasn't supposed to be here. And he wasn't supposed to be with her. She followed behind him seconds later, Rebecca. A paramedic I'd met twice. Pretty, quiet, kind. The kind of woman who smiled with her whole face. She looked at Lucas, then at me, like she wished the ground would open and swallow her. Daniel's mouth opened, but no sound came. Lucas stared between us all, his expression contorting into something I'll never forget. I don't remember what I said, if anything. I think I just nodded. Like somehow I already knew, deep down. Like maybe that silence between us had stopped being space and had become permission. He tried to explain later. Said it had been confusing, that it only happened once. That he didn't know how to reach me, that he'd felt invisible. I told him I believed him. Because I did. But belief doesn't rebuild trust. And some things you only get to break once. For 3 days, we barely spoke. He moved to the couch. I avoided every room he was in. The air between us turned icy, grief with no funeral, a marriage that hadn't died loud, just faded in slow motion. On the 4th night, I walked into the living room. He was half asleep on the couch, blanket pulled over him, arm draped across his eyes. The fire was dying in the hearth. I stood there watching him breathe, remembering the sound of it against my back at night when we used to fall asleep in sync. I sat on the edge of the couch. Gently moved the blanket. He stirred, looked up at me with bloodshot eyes. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I know," I said. And then I leaned down and kissed his forehead. Not out of forgiveness. Not out of hope. But out of love, for what we had. For the boy I met at 26. For the man who tried. For the man who failed. We didn't need more words. That kiss was goodbye. I used to think losing someone happened all at once. That it was some dramatic, final thing, a slammed door, a confession, a moment so loud it left no room for questions. But the truth is, most of the time, it's quieter than that. It's slow. It's subtle. It's watching the person you love turn into a version of themselves that no longer fits you, or maybe, if you're honest, a version you no longer know how to love. I've replayed that night 1,000 times in my head. The sound of Lucas's footsteps, the look on Daniel's face when he realized it wasn't just me who saw him, it was family. Someone innocent. Someone who didn't deserve to be dragged into the mess we'd both created. And I say we, because even though he crossed a line I didn't, the truth is, I stopped showing up long before he did. I withheld. I turned away. I stayed silent when I should have been honest. I buried my resentment in cold kisses and unanswered touches. I thought that if I protected myself, I'd be safe from hurt. But emotional distance doesn't protect you. It just guarantees you'll be lonely, even when someone's right beside you. What I've learned is this: intimacy isn't just about sex. And it's not just about communication, either. It's about courage. The courage to say, "I feel unloved," without worrying if it makes you sound needy. The courage to ask, "Can we fix this?" instead of hoping the other person just magically figures it out. The courage to stay in the room when it's easier to walk away. I didn't have that courage. Not when it counted. And Daniel, he didn't know how to read what I couldn't say. We were both drowning in the silence, hoping the other would learn how to swim first. So no, we didn't make it. And that hurts. There's no poetic way to say it. I miss him. I miss the version of us that danced barefoot in the kitchen. I miss laughing in bed about nothing. I even miss the dumb little arguments, about dishwasher loading and whether the dog needed another walk. But I don't miss feeling invisible. I don't miss wanting to want something I couldn't feel anymore. The night I kissed his forehead, that was the moment I knew it was over. Not out of hate. Not even out of anger. Just release. Quiet, inevitable release. Since then, I've been learning how to be alone again. Learning how to sit with discomfort instead of numbing it. Learning that desire without emotional safety becomes a transaction, not a connection. And learning, maybe most importantly, that it's okay to need what I need. That I'm not broken for wanting tenderness before touch, words before hands, safety before seduction. I used to think love was supposed to feel like fire. Now I think maybe it's supposed to feel like a presence. Someone choosing to stay in the room with you, even when it's uncomfortable. Especially when it's uncomfortable. So if you're listening to this, if you're sitting there wondering if you're too sensitive, too distant, too cold, too much, I want to tell you something: you're not. But you do need to speak. Don't wait for the slam of the door, or the shattering moment that comes too late. Don't wait for someone to reach for you after they've already let go. Say the hard thing now. Stay in the room. Because love doesn't die from fighting. It dies from silence. And I would have given anything to learn that one lesson, just a little sooner. 2.